Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. We're back with our weekly crypto news update with Michael. I think you got caught in the storms, so you're all right and you're back in Bali now, Michael.
Yeah, back in Indonesia last week, caught in a bit of a cyclone. So full flights got cancelled just as I was about to fly out. But yeah, we're sorted now.
Cool. Well, glad to have you back. We've got plenty of crypto news to get into, guys. And just as always, I just want to mention a lot of people still having trouble with banks on ramps and off ramps. So our partner Uptrade, for all your big orders getting in and out of crypto there, guys, without having any issues from the bank, and just mention Nugget News and they'll look after you. But what are you seeing happening in the crypto market the last week or two, Michael?
Yeah, it's gotten a little quiet. We can see all of like the on chain and us also just like social media metrics. Things have gotten a little bit quiet because I guess people are not really like too excited about what the market is doing right now. I'll just share some tabs. So you can see it's pretty much just been chop sideways over the last week. And this is kind of like that time-based capitulation. Like we're almost exactly where we were a week ago, and everyone's just kind of on edge. Are we going up? Are we going down? Are we getting a dump? And it just creates uncertainty and weakness in the market, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think 2 weeks ago I mentioned that between 78 and 74 there was some sort of liquidations and maybe a wick down there. We'll put in a bottom, and I think we wicked down to within that range on most of those exchanges as well. So we've seen a bit of talk of QE and the money printers come back on in different regions as well. So it's waiting to see if we can sort of bounce from this area, or if I think for me now it's the global macro, what is going on with the stock
Yep.
market, and are we going to World War III and all this type of thing that's obviously going to affect everything if something like that happens.
It's common consensus. Everyone kind of agrees with it now. It's like we're just waiting to figure out how badly the US wants to crash their market so that they can, roll over all their debt and, you know, effectively try and stimulate. So we did talk. I just want to highlight this as well. Like we do talk about this in the group in our weekly wrap up. So we produce a lot of articles, but then also in the weekly wrap up, we touch on everyone's hoping for rate cuts because of a lower inflation. Trade wars, obviously, this is all affects us, especially in the markets, because someone sneezes in the US and the rest of the world gets a cold type sort of thing.
Yeah.
And just even the Bitcoin bill again is back on the table. Cynthia Loomis as well resubmitting, and so just some of the things that we do in our weekly wrap up on top of like articles about specific projects as well.
Yeah, and that's all free, guys, as well. You can sign up for the weekly wrap up and hottest trends for free over on the platform. I just want to mention, even if we do go into, they're trying to drag us into World War III, the elites, I still think Bitcoin and gold are two of the safest places globally that are non political to park your money. And so, gold's over 3,000 an ounce now.
It's
I,
crazy.
I don't think Bitcoin crashes in that environment if we're getting
Nope.
a stock market crash, this chaos globally, geopolitically. I think altcoins would get smashed for sure. But the flight to
I was like,
safety for me now includes Bitcoin next to gold.
I was actually talking to some of the community based out of Australia, and a really prominent guy I've known in the space since about 17. He's like, done quite well for himself, is quite wealthy, and he's offloading properties right now to buy more Bitcoin. And so I think people with assets are starting to get a little bit worried about like, even is the real estate market safe? Where is the flight to safety? And I think Bitcoin just proves itself time and time again here.
Yeah, and it's amazing to watch this all unfold in slow motion for those of us that have kind of been talking about this for years and years now. And, you know, it seems like it is on our doorstep, and I hope nothing bad happens. But you've obviously got to prepare the best you can to protect
Mm.
yourself, your wealth, family, whatever.
Yep. All right, I'll rip through some of the news items of the week. So this was really interesting that the Trump administration is rescinding all previous IRS crypto guidance. So the tables just got cleared again. And so again, this is another example where last year or the year before or any time in the history of crypto before, this would have just sent markets to the moon. Like is what absolutely ripped. But this just goes under the radar. But essentially now the IRS is starting from scratch on crypto, which is, you know, it can't. They're obviously not going to make it worse, and so this is again very bullish for those in the US who have been missing out on things like airdrops, missing out on other opportunities for farming and staking rewards. And so, pat on the back if you're in America right now.
And not to mention just the general talk of ending the IRS altogether, and maybe even,
Yeah.
ending the Fed and auditing the gold. All this stuff is just radical changes to the financial system we haven't seen before. There's other countries that are scrapping tax for low-income families and single mothers and doing all these great changes that are taking power away from the bankers and the cabal and everything. So amazing time to be alive.
Another one, which again, Ripple just keeps coming out with the wins. So they've now been regulated for payments in the UAE. And so you and I are both recent converts to, I guess, the narrative of Ripple and what's going on. But it just seems like they've got their hooks into everything right now.
Yeah, I think I read it. 20% of the use of the Ripple ledger and payment system is now in the UAE. And again, this is very interesting geopolitically with what's happening with Iran, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and everything. To the fact that we are seeing that Ripple is being used for payments by these traditional financial institutions. Now, again, whether or not this ties into the XRP price and more demand for the XRP token, all that, we still are kind of waiting to see how that plays out. But you can't deny that they're getting some partnerships and getting more use.
And to even double down on the UAE, so they've just made an investment, their Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund, in 2 billion into Binance. And I really just want to pause here for a second because this is significant for anyone who's been around like crypto for a while. It was always kind of like the whispered, unspoken thing that if Binance goes down, we're all cooked here because this is essentially like the heart of the crypto market, and Tether was the blood effectively. And if any one of these two went down, it would be pretty fatal for our industry. And so the fact now that CZ's obviously done we'll talk about CZ in a minute, but CZ's obviously done some jail time and stepped aside. And now you've got an actual legitimate sovereign wealth fund making investments into Binance. I think they just got institutionalized, and it's probably better for all of us from a security perspective because there would have been a huge amount of DD done on this.
Yeah, and we've seen that attack on Bybit, who are the second largest trading exchange by volume. We always see Tether rumors floating around, but as you said, the big step for legitimacy for Binance. And a lot of people, even when CZ went to jail, sort of thought, is that going to be the end? But they've absolutely maintained, their crown, I guess, as the number one altcoin exchange.
I'll just touch on this really briefly as well, because I'm actually heading off to the UAE in about a month for Token 2049. And for those that have never been out there or don't really know what's going on, we hear about it in this, sort of mythical place, but they are very forward looking. And for those that are unaware, it's something like 15% of the population hold local passports, and they're 85% immigrants. And so this is 85% of the whole 3.5 million people that live in Dubai specifically are foreigners. And people are going there to set up businesses, to try and run their, in a tax-free environment or almost tax-free environment. And it's incredible. You can see the integrations and the types of people. And we hear about it a lot on our side, on the research side, from everybody who's got almost like a doomsday office there for their business.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting just watching what countries are doing now. And I think, they were all kind of oscillating around the fact that the US wasn't doing it and they were trying to dip their toe in the water, but now it's just ramped right up. Now that America's like, okay, we're on board with crypto too now, you can just going to see more and more and more of these countries just making it more and more and more accessible.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that quickly as well with what we see in the news cycle and how they're pushing, always pushing, division and racism and so on. And this idea that the Middle East is full of radical Muslims and all this stuff. You've just reeled off how many entrepreneurs and wealthy people are going, I'm out of the US or Europe and I'm moving to the Middle East, to Dubai. Yep. It's a safer, better place to do business. So again, it's just so, as always, what the media is telling us is often the inversion.
And they're not alone as well. And you can see, I think Saudi Arabia, who's traditionally been the most conservative country in the region, is very much trying to mimic what's going on in Dubai at the moment with the Neon project. Anyone wants to have a look, go have a look what they're doing there. That's the Lion City type sort of stuff. But even from a regulatory environment, they're trying to open quite significantly. And that's not to say that they're, the golden child or anything, but it just shows that attitudes towards interacting with the world is changing in that region.
I agree.
There's an article in the Wall Street Journal about CZ was trying to get a pardon, but apparently this is not true. CZ's refuted it, but just goes to show that this man can't stay out of the media at the moment. And I've never been a big BNB chain fan. I think in the early days, it was like the only place you could go that wasn't going to cost you $20 gas fees. But it was kind of, the worst kept secret in the world that it was mostly probably just run off of CZ's laptop, CZ's phone, CZ's desktop computer. Like it was not a decentralized network.
Yeah.
But respect to the man for continuing to push the industry forward. So, something to watch there.
Yeah, just on the pardons topic, we've seen in the news cycle this week about Joe Biden's auto pen signature, and Trump tweeted a few hours back that legally that might not count for those pardons that he gave to Fauci, his son and others. But then people have gone digging a bit deeper and going, well, hold on, this auto pen was actually first used by Obama, and it goes back to this whole theory of why did a lot of these pardons go back to 2014 with Ukraine and the corruption there. So I think this whole auto pen pardon story is another big thing that we're going to see play out in the news cycle.
It doesn't stop too. And I think I love the whole idea that, we've got someone who's just shaking the tree and seeing what falls out of it right now. It's nonstop entertainment, even if it's not your flavor politically, but man, it's never been more interesting. That's for sure.
Well, we hope it paves the way for decentralization and local government and citizens to get power back and not roll out this AI surveillance agenda. Really, that's why we're all here in this decentralized community.
Yep, 100%. Another one who's pretty much just laying the pave work of I guess, the construction of this network is Coinbase. So they've launched a fund again on Base for those that are wanting to build. And for those that are unaware, so the Ethereum layer 2 ecosystem right now is still quite fragmented. So you've got different teams and different ecosystems. So you've got the Arbitrum network, you've got the Polygon network, you've got a lot of the different ZK chains, and then you've got the OP Collective, which is Optimism. And so the OP Collective is a charter that a lot of these projects all sign up to say, we're going to contribute to the OP superchain. Anecdotally, it's pretty much the same model that Polkadot came out with 3 years ago, but everyone knows that I'm still a Polkadot architecture fan.
Yes.
But what they've done effectively is they've said every single time there's an upgrade to the network, all of our chains will upgrade at the same time, so they're all compatible with each other. And so it's, the Optimism chain itself, it's Base, it's the Uni chain, it's Mantle. All of these are part of the OP Collective, and it seems like from where I'm sitting that they're probably going to be the future of Ethereum Layer 2s, this OP Collective. And so you can see the funding that's available here now for teams to build in that ecosystem, and they'll all be interoperable with each other. You can bridge and whatnot between them.
And this ties into one of the issues that ETH is facing, how the Layer 2s are kind of sucking, the energy, the activity almost out of that base chain. And I think you said in the pre-interview that, the fees are just record lows now on Ethereum because it's just not seeing that activity. It's great that the activity's moved to Layer 2s and that fees are low, but Ethereum itself has kind of now lost its maybe narrative and its long-term security model, possibly being ultrasound money and that deflationary, status we saw. So all these things, you can't really judge at the moment. Well, there's not a lot happening, but they need to get that roadmap in order for sure.
Well, the fact that gas is that cheap, that is incredible. For those that are unaware, this goes as high as 20, and at the moment it's 0.44. So when it's at 20, you're paying, $10 for a swap, $8 to send some funds, all that sort of stuff. And so it's very, very affordable to use the ETH mainnet base layer at the moment. But I do see that there's a groundswell now to start to scale the base layer. People maybe have decided, okay, we've got the L2 thing pretty established now. People can use the network cheap, fast. But now it's time. I think the next version of Ethereum, there's definitely a big push from the OG Ethereum community to scale the base layer. So I think that's going to be a multi-year journey, but let's see where they want to take it.
Yeah.
Just interestingly as well, for those that we talked about Hyperliquid here a couple of months ago when it first came out, and I think it has become a really key player now in the DeFi scene. They had a little bit of an interesting moment where there was a bit of a scam week and someone got liquidated over $4 million, or multiple people did. And there was rumors going around that it was a hack. It's not the case. They've come out and said that it wasn't, but they just needed to have some more protection protocols in place so that people couldn't get just, mass liquidated off of just really thin trading. And so they did have leverage up to 100 times on BTC. They've scaled that now to make it more reasonable, I guess, 40x. I wouldn't be 40xing my Bitcoin, but
Yeah.
Yeah, just an interesting one that caused a lot of controversy throughout the week as well.
And that's always the, I guess, caution, isn't it, with any new exchange that it's always the liquidity and, like you say, those scam weeks where it trades lower. You wake up and check your phone, the Bitcoin price hasn't gone down to what you thought was your liquidation, and then you see that it was on that one exchange, that new exchange you were using. So, as always, be cautious trading, guys, with leverage in that.
Yeah, we had a story during the week of some guy that we know in our community went to go have a shower, got scam wicked, and lost 70 ETH from just like, the price was there for a millisecond and it's wiped him out. And so this is just like, don't bet the farm on this type of stuff. Like it's obviously I'm not a huge leverage trader, but I think there's a time in a season where you might like play around with leverage a little bit, but yeah, proceed with caution.
Yeah, a bit of a rite of passage to lose, and then realize that keep most of your stack for your hodling. Get your crypto debit card these days for your spending and that type of thing. OTC for your large orders. Have all your systems and accounts in place so that you're free to move around as you wish.
100%. For those that haven't as well, I'd like go check out Kyle's video from last week. And that's got some really great, technical analysis on where we're moving right now. But I know we're probably wanting to try and reclaim that sort of low 90s as quickly as possible here. Otherwise, we might see a bit more chop for quite an extended period of time. But don't go selling your bags at the bottom. This is like exactly what happens in this sort of scenario. And there's plenty of opportunity still in the space. Like there's huge amounts of farming. There's huge amounts of rewards that are still available. So if you're wanting to scratch the degen itch, there's heaps and heaps of things available that you can do, which we'll cover off eternally. And just, stack your sats and, prepare for a rainy day.
Absolutely. And yeah, Michael's been pumping out, and the team, all that written research as well, guys. For those of you that want to sign up for that, or our VIP high net worth services as well, where we meet on the first Tuesday of every month. So guys, hope you've enjoyed that. Michael will speak again next week, and talk to you soon, guys. Cheers.